We'll just quickly review what's happened so far, then we'll go next. So we had used a virtual environment. We have created a virtual environment in this directory. And for us to use that virtual environment, I'll have to do execute my Django scripts. If you open it, you will find it here. So this is what we need to execute in order to get into the virtual environment. And I have installed Django and other packages. Django is what we have used, and we are using SQLite database for this project. Yes, SQLite. Okay, so we had created the project with start project, Django admin. If you see the help, Django admin. Oh, sorry. We have used a start project to start the project, my project, and it has created these files. Then I created start app. With that, I've created home application and notes application. So home application, we used it for pages like home view and authorized view. It's a sample HTML templates that we used. And notes application, we are using it for defining the models and storing the notes. So we will run the server with start run server. So before, as soon as we add the app, we will add it to the settings to know, to make the Django application know that there is a new app. Home and notes are added. Then we have model view template architecture. Models will have all the models that we define. This is the database table equivalent. Views will have the views, list view, detail view. To access these models, we use these views. And we have URLs to define the routes. And we have the admin interface. We have logged into admin interface and manipulated nodes also. And similarly, we have Django shell. So if I go inside my project, I can manage to define shell. I can use all these imports and create all the views, even create a model object and save it in the DB and read the models from the DB. So we have filters for filtering based on a certain conditions. Contains starts with something similar. And then we had created super user with Django admin. Create super user. Oh, sorry, Python manage.py. We have migrations for creating the migrations out of this model definitions. And then we have another thing called create super user, which is not stored here, but yeah, yes. So create super user we can use to create a login. So we will end up going to sign up, sign in, login, log out functionality we will implement in our code itself. So as of now, we have been using the default admin interface for manipulating these objects. So we have defined some views here. We have converted. We had seen two types of views. One is function-based views, and one is class-based views. So class-based views give us the advantage of not repeating code. So we can inherit from previous defined classes and reuse that code instead of doing everything in the same function. We can define different levels of objects or classes, and we can inherit from those parent classes and use their functionality without repeating the code ourselves. Then we had seen the authorized views. That is a mixing in function-based views, we call it as decorators, and in class-based views, we call it as mixins. So for login, we have used decorators, and for class-based views, we have used the mixin. Then we had added the admin interface for this list display. We are using title. That's all we had. Now we'll go through templates. We have last thing we did was we created two views, list view and detail view. The templates we used list for loop for listing all the nodes, and then detail view we have used like this. Right. We have defined class-based views also. Let's go to views, see if we have new. Now let's convert our nodes views also into class-based views. And in here we have used template view. There are some generic views that will help us implement list views and detail views without having to repeat a lot of code. So let's use those in our nodes views. There is something called list view in generics. So I will import list view here. And for list views, for listing the nodes, I can use this list view. So let's convert this list into a class-based view. I'll just define it as nodes list view that inherits from generic list view. So if I'm putting as path, it means like do nothing. It's just a placeholder. So in list-based views, we can define which is the model that we are trying to list. Model equals nodes model. So what it does is, based on the nodes definitions, what all columns has been defined, it will automatically figure out what columns to display. And let's see this template, nodes list view template. We are using nodes as the object that we want to iterate. So this nodes needs to be defined here. Context object name. So every time this view renders a template, it will pass a context object with this view uses, this template uses. The context object here is this. The name of the context object we need to define here. Context object nodes. What this by default does is it will query the nodes model and it does actually, this is what it does. So this entire thing, what list view generic view has is it will list all the model objects of this type, whatever we define as here as a model object. It will list all the objects and puts it under name nodes and pass it on to the template. So nodes list is the default view that it uses. As I've defined the list view as nodes list, it will automatically figure out this is the template. We can also specify the template also if we have the name as different from this definition of nodes list. We'll go into how to define the template name and stuff. We'll just comment out this and just go and change the URLs to use this nodes list view. Here, list view, we are doing it as this, but I need to use it as nodes list view dot as view. Let's run this server and see if things are working fine. Run server. Let's go to nodes. And this is exactly working fine. Let's just name this different. Let's go see example list. Let's see if this works. I've just changed the list view from nodes list view to nodes example list view. So if I name it as nodes list view, it will automatically determine if it is this template. I'm just changing the name of the template class so that we will break something. Let's go re-render the application. See if this works. It is working. Somehow it is working. Okay. If I want to custom name, custom template, if I want to use, let's go change that code. Let's just say I want to use, I'll just duplicate this. Just use custom list. And I want to use this template instead of this. That's it. I'll change this text to this is custom nodes template. And let's go back to this URL. So I'll just change it to this. Now I will specify which template to use. So template name is the variable I need to use. Now instead of nodes list, I'm going to use custom nodes list.html. Now let's go refresh and see. We can see this. So if I want to change the template from default naming conventions, I can do that with explicitly specifying the name of the template in the class list-based views or class-based view. So if I don't use this, it will by default use nodes list because this is a nodes object and we are inheriting from list view object. So these are the conventions in Django, but we can always override the conventions. And that is about list view as a class-based view. Then now we will also change the detail view. So there is something called detail view in the generics, Django views generics. I don't think we are using template view in this file anymore. So I'll just remove this import and I'll import detail view. So I'll define one more class called nodes detail view that inherits from generic detail view. Just what we need to find out here is, and similar to what list view we did, similar to that, we will have to specify model as nodes. So this is common for all the class-based views. Which model are we trying to manipulate? Which is the thing that we are retrieving from DB. And also we need context object name. Similar to this, we are using in this nodes detail template, we are using the context object as node. Let's go change that context object. Node. Now this view automatically accepts one parameter called pk, so which we have used here in detail view. Instead of the class function based view, I'm going to use detail view. So by default, this also does search for nodes underscore detail.html, which is details.html. This is what we are going to use. So I'm changing the URL to use the class-based view instead of the function-based view. I'll just comment out this. So by default, the logic that we are handling here does not exist. 404 is by default handled by this detail view template. So we'll just verify that also now. Let's go refresh the page. We'll go to browser. Let's go to nodes. Details. Template does not exist on nodes details. So it's actually searching for nodes underscore detail. So we can either change the template name or we can specify the explicit template URL. So we'll change the template name like this. We'll change this here to use nodes detail.html. We can either change this or we can. It's searching for nodes underscore detail. We have used the clue, so I'm going to use this as a template. Let's go back to our browser. Refresh. Now it shows the details. So now let's go. We have a nodes object with this details with this ID primary key. What if we don't have this? Let's say 12. If I access, it should not be there. It should throw a 404 error. Earlier we had implemented this in our code, but now we're going to use class-based views to get that by default. Let's go. Now it's throwing 404 not found error. So that's the advantage of using class-based views. By default, a lot of functionality is implemented within those generic views, and we don't have to repeat ourselves implementing those functionalities. So that's about class-based views. Now let's go see how to filter objects based on certain conditions. Until now, we have seen listing all objects and listing single object. And what if we have a filter that allows us to filter only specific nodes? Let's say some nodes have favorites, or like, let's say there are some certain set of likes that it has, and only the popular nodes if I want to list, That requires a filtering logic in place. So for that, let's go implement a view called popular nodes list view. And this is also a list view. So I'm going to use list view, but the only difference here is going to be we will be filtering the nodes instead of getting all the nodes from the DB. We are only going to filter by certain conditions. If the nodes has likes greater than 2 or greater than 1, then only we are going to list those nodes. For that, we still need to go define what's the model that we are going to use. Nodes is the model, and context object name is same. We're going to use the same nodes list template, just that the objects nodes now will have only the filtered objects. How do I filter the objects? So if I want to go get all the objects, I can just do it with query set. So for getting the specific set of nodes, I need to use this variable. So I can do nodes dot objects dot all. It means get all the objects. So now that I don't want all the objects, I need to use filter here. Filter. And filter for what? So there is a field called likes in models. Only the nodes which have likes greater than 1 I want to list. So default value is 0. Let's go change the filter to have likes underscore greater than or equal to. This you can get this from the documentation, how to use these conditions, what conditions are available. We had already seen contains, I contains, starts with, ends with something similar. We can get a list of all the supported filters in the Django documentation. For now, greater than, less than, less than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. These are the ones that we widely use. So likes greater than or equal to 1 is what I'm going to filter by popular nodes. So for this, I need to add a URL also. Let's go see URLs. I'm going to add one more URL details, or I'll just say popular nodes list view as view to use. Now let's go filter by this view. I'm going to do popular. Okay, some mistake here. I need to actually use the list view, not the detail view, in our URL. So you should not copy this view. Actually, you should use list view instead. Instead of list, I'm just going to use popular nodes list view. This is a list view. It doesn't accept any parameters. This is detail view. It accepts one parameter, which is the foreign key or primary key. So let's go back. Go to the browser. Let's go to nodes list. Gives all the list of all the tasks or nodes, and I'm just going to use popular as the entry, but there are no nodes that have likes greater than 1. So for that, I'm going to manipulate something here. Let's go to the shell. So we'll open one more terminal or I'll just use the current one. We'll close this. And Python manage.py shell. I'm going to get the first nodes and increment the likes by 1. So for getting the nodes, I need to go to model. I need to import Django.db import. Just one sec. Actually, we need to use this models, not DB models, from nodes.models, import nodes. This is what we need. Let's go get the first node, my node, nodes.objects, get by primary key 1. It's just my node dot likes. Currently likes is 0. I'm going to update this likes to 1. Increment is not defined. My node, sorry. I just incremented this. I haven't saved it yet. My node dot likes, if I list, it is 1, but it's not saved to DB yet. So let's get to my node dot save. We will all again get the same node from the DB again, and now list my node dot likes. Now it is 1. So now let's go to the browser and see if this node is coming as a popular one in the view. So earlier we didn't have the likes as 1. So now if we had filtered and it was listing nothing. So now I will refresh, but I need to start the server. Let me go to the server and run it. Python manage.py. Run server I'm using. Once it is done, then I'll refresh. Now I can see this because this node has likes greater than or equal to 1. So that's how we filter entities. Now we have our filter logic working. The popular view also we have implemented. And it's time to serve some static files. Till now, we have been generating all the code and all the data from the template and the backend server. So what if we have some set of CSS files or JavaScript files? How do I serve those JavaScript files or CSS files? So let's use static middleware. For that, we have to go into our project settings. If there is a static URL, we can see the static URL. So if it's not there, we can add it. So if we want to go through how to work with static files, you can also follow this link and learn about that. So here, what we are interested in doing is we want to specify which is the static directory that we want to use. So by default, it has a static directory, which is static. Whenever I access static in the URL, it is going to serve from the static files that we defined here. So we need to specify where those files will exist with a variable called static files there's. So this specifies a list of directories where we are going to store static files. Static files meaning it's not dynamically generated. It's all hard coded. It's files, plain old files. It can be either CSS, JavaScript, or image files also. So I'm going to use base directory as a starting point, and I'm going to define a directory called static. So this basic base directory is going to be the base directory of my project, my project's base directory. Now I'm going to create a new directory in the my project. This is the base directory, we can say. And I'm going to create a folder static. That's what I've specified here. I'm going to use a simple style sheet here. I'll create a style sheet, style.css, and I'll just say define not list as a class, and I'll define the color as red for this. I'm going to use this class in nodes list view. Oh, class. Here we can use the class. When we are using React, we should use class name, but in this templates we can use class itself. So I'm going to use class here, nodes list, and I'm going to include in the template, I'm going to include that CSS also. I'm going to have, so for me to load the static files in this, I'm going to use CSS inc type text slash CSS, and we need to define relationship as style sheet. This is plain old HTML. We can discuss about this HTML later. So href will have the actual URL of the static file. For this, I need to specify dynamically what's the static file. So if the Django is serving the static files from this directory, I need to have, it will automatically generate a URL for this. So for me to find that URL, I need to use some Django code like this. I need to use static and the URL for the style sheet. So which is style.css. Let's say I will just move this style.css into another folder called CSS. I'll move the style.css to this folder. In that case, I have to use CSS/style. So this same link I'm going to use even in nodes list view and even in nodes detail view. But we will aggregate this into one base template in a bit. So this is all repeating code, like this head, all this HTML, we are actually repeating in all the views. There is a better way to handle this and having it in one single layout file and then using only the specific view specific logic in the view templates and using the base template as a starting point. That we will look into in some time. So for me to use this static keyword, there is one thing I need to still do here. Before we start here, we should have one thing defined here. There is a function that we need to call here, load static. If I do load static, so it is, we are letting the Django template engine know that I'm using some static files in here. and load those static files. So which static files to load is specified by this particular statement. So something like this has to be added everywhere. So we will aggregate this into one template and we'll use it for demonstration. Let's repeat the code. So now we'll run the server. I'll present the browser. I'll go refresh. Let's see if the styles are getting applied. Now it's in red. If you inspect, the class nodes li is added and the styles is coming from style.css, which is color is red, and the color is red now. So this is how we include static files. It can be any CSS or JavaScript, or even image files can be served from static middleware. So now we have loaded, I have repeated this code, HTML code in all the views. So there is a better way. We can have a base template defined, and that will allow us to have not repeat the code. Let's go define that base template and use it everywhere. So in static, I'm going to use a templates directory. Let's go to the static folder. Inside this, I'm going to create a new folder called templates. This is kind of a layout. All this HTML overhead, we don't need to put it in all the templates. We can just define it as, inside this, I'm going to create a file called base.html. This is the base HTML that I'm going to use everywhere. Something like load static, I'm going to use in this base HTML. And I'm going to define simple HTML here. This HTML repeats, and same thing here. This I'm copying so that only I'll keep this part only in this template and use everything from the base template. So this link I'll just copy and use it here. And then I will define the body. So now is the tricky part. Here I'm going to define a block called content or view specific content. This name can be anything. I'm just giving it as a content, and I'm defining end of block here. End block. And I can put any dummy text here. Let's say this is going to get replaced by view specific template. Whatever is defined in these two block content, this content will get replaced by view specific content. How do I do that? Let's go to the custom views or nodes detail view or list view. So we are going to use this base template everywhere. This HTML, we don't have to write it every time. Let's go to the nodes list view, or we can just do this in here. Nodes detail view. What I need to do is, let's remove all these parts. This I don't need, only this part I need. Only this part is specific to this view. Rest of the template is all about going to come from base.html. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to define a statement extends base.html. So this template is going to be an extension of base.html, and what I'm going to extend is the block content. I've defined block content in base HTML. I'm going to do the same thing here in block. I'm going to put this content inside these two blocks. What we are doing here, we are defining base template and we are putting a placeholder in this content block. And this content is getting replaced by nodes list view, nodes detail view. We are extending this base template and we are replacing the content block with this content. Let's go see how that works. I'm going to go to nodes, details, one. Template does not exist. Base.html. We haven't defined the static templates yet. So we have to specify one parameter in the static templates definition that I'm going to use now. We have, let's go to node settings. In this, there is something called templates. So we have defined templates here. This templates configuration will search for which all templates it needs to, which all directories it needs to search for templates. We haven't defined the static templates folder here. So in this directories, by default, it will look for within the same application where we are accessing, it searches for templates slash nodes. If I'm using nodes app, it'll search within this. So we have defined this static template outside of this app and inside of this static block. So that we need to specify. So here I'm going to specify the directory as base directory slash static and then templates. So if you do not find the files in these local folders, this statement specifies that you need to search in the base directory and static templates folder. The setting we are doing here. I can put a comma here. Let's go see that now. Go refresh. Now it's able to find, and that block, what we specified, is got replaced by this block inside the body. If I don't put this, let's just go to our code. Notes detail view. Similar to this, I'm going to do it for notes list view. Remove this extends based on HTML. Don't need this entirely from here to here, and this we don't need. Just for demonstration, I'm just going to comment out this portion. Let's go to the list view and see what it shows. We are just extending the base template and we are not doing any replacements here. Let's go to notes list. So this statement we have put in the template, base template, which is base.html. That it did not replace anything there because we are not extending. We extended, but we did not override the block. So just like we did here, we are extending here, and we had defined the block content, and here we haven't defined any. So for that to get replaced, I need to define it like this. Again, end of the block, end block. So this code has to go inside that block. Now, if I go to the browser and refresh the data, the real data comes. You can see here. List view is working. So this is how we don't repeat ourselves. We define a base template and we can extend any number of templates on top of it. There is a embedding functionality also. If there is one template that we need to use in multiple places, instead of extending, we can also include that in the code. We'll revisit that, how to do that in some time. So in the base.html, now I'm going to use some Bootstrap CSS. Bootstrap is a CSS framework which provides default functionality for styles. A framework, CSS framework it is. So I'm going to use Bootstrap now. So we can go to CDN. Let's go search in Google. Bootstrap CSS. Bootstrap CDN. This I can use. I'm going to include the statement in the base.html for Bootstrap CSS. So there is even JavaScript. I'm going to use Bootstrap JavaScript. This is a very useful library for getting the styles. So these two only we need. Let's go back to our code. I see here I've added the CSS and then at the end of it I've added the Bootstrap. I'm going to remove the static style sheet. We don't need it anymore. Let's go define one small style in the content. In our list views, we will just define some classes. What the advantage of Bootstrap is, we can define classes and automatically the Bootstrap library will take care of the rest. In this, I'm going to use one division element. Let us say create a div here. And I'm going to define the class as margin y5. I'll teach you what Bootstrap classes and all when we are going through the UI tutorials. So I'm going to do one class called text center. These are all defining how the content should look like. Container. I'm going to use this inside here. And let's say I will add a button here, check out the nodes. So to go into the detail view, I'll add a button here. For now, let's just check how this UI is looking now. Go to the list view. So these are the CSS changes we did. Because of that, we have got content. If it is container, we can see the automatic assignment of styles. It has changed a lot. Now let's go add a button to actually see this details of this particular nodes. Now we have been navigating through the links. Now I want to make it interactive. In this list view, if I click on this particular item, I need to be able to navigate into that particular node's details, node's title, and all that. For that, I'm going to create a button. Let's do that here. I'm going to create a button inside here. Href specifies what's the URL, but we will go into the URL next. But before that, let's define class as button, primary. These are all Bootstrap classes. I'll teach you what these are sometime. And go to this node. Okay. For me to use a URL, I need to know which URL I need to pass to. So this particular nodes will have a specific URL to the detail view. If you go visit the URLs that we buy. So this detail view, when I click on this button, it has to go into this particular node's detail view, specifying the node ID and all that. For that, I can have a name defined for this particular path. So let's go see this. I will define a name for this path for ease of use, and nodes dot details. This one I'll use in the nodes detail. This name I'm going to use in the href portion of this nodes list. So here I can define one thing. I can put again the Django template language here, which specifies the URL for nodes.detail, and it also accepts one parameter, which is primary key, which is going to be node.id. Node will have 1, 2, 3 IDs, so that ID we are going to use as primary key. And this will go to whenever I click on this particular nodes, it will go to this particular detail view. Let's see if this works. Refresh. So this node, go to this node. It's going to that detail view. That's about how to navigate between pages. So let's go change some styles for this also, the detail view also. In this detail view, we have only this. I'll put this under a division. Class. Font. We put all this under one division. Let's see how this looks now. Okay, this is displaying a bordered entity. Actually, we need to also specify the center and container. Let's define a container class for this and see how this looks. If I define the container, this is having this. I'm just going to change one more parameter. I'll show you what I did next. Refresh. I've increased the margin y as 5. So what I did, I'll show you. So I've then added a container class to this, which adds a padding to the borders. And my5 means margin y direction is vertical and x direction is horizontal. Margin y means give a gap of 5 pixels top and bottom. So that's what I added. Border round. So border with the border, and round means it is the borders are rounded. Okay. The next thing is we'll create a new home view of this application. Let's go. We have seen how to extend the base template, and now we are going to see how to include an external another template inside one template. Let's go to the home view here. We have templates, welcome page. While we are here, let's go add a new button here that says href. I'm going to send it to the notes list. As soon as I launch the application, I have to go to this page, notes list. I haven't defined this notes list yet. I need to name this list. I'll go to notes and go to URLs. I'm giving a name to this list view. URL name as notes list. I'm going to use this notes list inside the welcome page. When I click on this anchor element, which is a link, so I'm going to make it look like a button primary. These are all the styles. We'll define how to check out the notes. So this is going to go into this particular link. Let's go see the welcome page. But before that, I have to change one thing. Now, as soon as I launch the application, it's not going anywhere. So I want this to go to welcome page. So in the URLs, right now I have defined home as the home view. So by default, I want it to go to home view. So if I am specifying no other path, let's just remove this. And now what it does is, as soon as I go to this particular URL, it doesn't. It goes to the home view. Let's go and do that. Check that out. Let's go to the /8000 part. Home page is getting loaded. Check out the notes. And we go to the list view, and if I click on this, it goes to the detail view. Okay, that's about for today. We'll revisit that the next steps tomorrow. We'll even extend beyond just plain old CSS. We will also have React integration done into Django and build single page web applications also. So I'll show you how to include one template in another template tomorrow. and then we'll go forward with that. And there is something called update views and create views. We haven't seen creation forms, form builders in Django. We'll look into that also in tomorrow's class. And Django also has security features like CSRF tokens and stuff. We will visit that also tomorrow.